Hi, Mark here from the Tangibound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangibound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangibound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangiboundNetwork.com and see if Tangibound Network is right for you.
Sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. A life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Craze Life, everyone. My name is Jen, and I am your hostess for the evening. And with me, we have Brian and Hanno tonight.
No, Hanno don't love us.
Oh, no. After talking about breaking up with us last week, and no, we're obviously joking.
Yeah.
Hanno's super busy this week, so we wish him all the luck in all his endeavors. And I'm sure he'll be with us soon. Again.
Yep.
So,
I just assume he's laying around on the couch eating bonbons, watching trashy telenovelas.
Yes, with 2 dogs on his lap and one staring very, very angrily at him, at the dogs, because he wants to be there and the puppies are already up there.
Probably. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Bogart's going to be hanging out going, damn puppies.
Yep.
But
Gotta get there sooner, dude. Yep.
So, how's your weekend?
Not too bad. Pretty, fairly boring-ish. I mean, over, was it last week? My sister came down with COVID, and she's doing fine. She went back to work yesterday, I think.
Good.
So she's doing well. Other than, just still really, fatigued. But other than that, she's fine. So, and, she had a couple days that were, it's the way most people seem to be getting it. Thank goodness at this point is it kind of kicks your butt for 2 to 3 days, and then you start kind of recovering from that point. The sad part is you just never know how long the recovery from that point is. Some people have, where that fatigue doesn't go away for months or longer, and some it goes away real quick. So, but thankfully her husband didn't get it. She was the only one that did. So it's, that's good. And my mom was directly exposed to her the, day before she found out she had it. So, thank goodness, neither of us came down with it. And my other sister who was with them, she's fine. So, we lucked out on those things, but it's still stressful. It's like, even though for the most part, the world is kind of like, oh, it's just COVID, like in the most part. And it was like, yeah, this still can kill people. It still can be dangerous. So it's when it hits real close to home, it's like, I remember I was listening to, I have a huge backlog of podcasts that I'm listening to, And it's so weird because some of them, I mean, go back even before COVID. And some I've, like Planet Money, I'm like years behind on. And I'm now in the point where we haven't quite got to the, like, everybody was, it's like lockdown, but not like the heavy lockdown yet. It's kind of that initial lockdown. And it's so weird listening to people's reactions and their, well, we don't know this, and now we know different things, you know. It feels like so long ago. And then you're like, this was only like 3 years ago or 2.5 years ago, something. It's like, it really wasn't that long ago, but time has just, it doesn't have, it feels like it moves differently post-COVID, you know, than it does pre-COVID. But anyway, so yeah, that whole thing is, you know, hopefully, you know, behind us here, and everybody seems to be doing okay, and that's all you can hope for, and whatever. We didn't go, she had a thing with like, a bunch of friends and family, because my brother-in-law turned 60 last week, and, you know, we opted to not go and whatever. So I ended up going over to Tony's house, and we hung out, and we got a big New Yorker pizza,
Nice.
Pizza Hut, because we remember getting it when it came out originally, and it was something that was, you know, we used to watch, you know, like when we were watching wrestling and having a big New Yorker and making stupid New York accents and whatever. And we got it to see if it would hold up to the nostalgia, and then we did a recording for our Patreon, you know, about what we thought and whatever. And then we just did kind of a BS session for a little bit, you know, and recorded that. And that was, you know, that was really nice. We haven't done that in a while. So that was fun to do that again. And that's, you know, aside from, you know, I did the rounds of the stores yesterday. Like, I go up to one store to get our bread, go to another place to get the fruits and vegetables, and then we go to Kroger for the bulk of things, you know. And now I've occasionally mixed in going to Aldi for stuff. So it just depends on where we're at. But by the time I'm done with that, I'm very, like, I just want to lock myself in my room, you know. And it's weird because I'm having basically no social interactions while I'm in these places, you know.
Yeah.
Like when I'm in Kroger, I got my AirPods in my ears and I'm just listening to my Discover Weekly playlist, you know, walking around the store, and my noise canceling on, so I really can't hear anything else going on around me. But my anxiety was running really high yesterday. And I don't know if it was weird because, you know, it was a beautiful day yesterday. It was almost 60 and it was sunny and all that. And I don't know if it was maybe because of it being a little warmer or just the overwhelmed feeling I had from the, you know, going to all the stores or whatever. Because the stores weren't terribly busy, you know. It wasn't, you know, like crazy. I mean, you know, when I got done, I walked right up and there was only one guy in front of me in line, you know. So I felt really bad because I had, you know, the heaving cart full of stuff, and the woman just starts scanning my stuff. She gets about 10 items in, and a guy walks up behind me, and he's got like a small birthday cake and ice cream, and I'm like, oh, and he's paying cash, so he can't go through the U-scan. He's got to go through the checkout. And I'm like, oh, this poor guy's got to wait like half an hour because of me now. Like if he was 2 minutes sooner, you know.
Right.
But, yeah.
Honestly, it's probably the weather, because I get major anxiety hit when spring hits.
Right. Well, I also know
the first week of spring, I'm a mess.
Yeah.
And then my body settles and I'm
right. I'm usually like that too. Yeah. And I know there was a huge barometric pressure switch because I saw through the weather app for around here, they sent out a thing about it that was like, and you know me, I'm sensitive to the weather shift anyway. And I mean, I really did yesterday. I felt like I felt like Andre the Giant was just crushing my head, you know? So that I'm sure.
When we got the rain, it was a mess on my head.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, and like today I feel a whole lot better because that's moved through. But I know we got another system coming in like tonight into tomorrow or whatever. So I'm sure that'll be fun.
We can't complain though, because you know, those poor people up north.
Oh, I know. The rest of the country is getting all this weird weather and all this.
Yeah.
And we're getting rain, but we're not getting like flood level rain. So, and we're not getting dumped on with snow. Like I think they showed they showed like our February is one of the least snow-filled Februarys in history. Because we only had, was it 9/10 of an inch of snow through February. And
you know what that means for March?
Well, hopefully not, but
historically, if we have a very mild winter, we're going to get snowed in.
Yeah.
And it's almost a given.
We've just been fortunate enough the way the wind currents and stuff have shifted that we sit, and we've said this before, I know I have on Salty Language, like we sit in a pocket where we live. We're right off the lake, but we do and we don't get lake effect stuff. Like we get the lake effect humidity, but a lot of times we don't get like lake effect snow like Cleveland does or Chicago does, where the being right by the lake or Detroit. Yeah, we're in a weird pocket of those, between those like kind of three areas. And a lot of times we get really, knock on wood, fortunate that the weather will, like, I don't know how many times so far this winter we've been right on the line. Like if you went 10 minutes north of us, they got snow and we just got rain, so, we've been real fortunate, but it still wrecks my head every time. So, that part's not fun, but you're right. I can't complain about the type of weather, essentially. I can complain that my head's killing me.
Yeah.
And actually, though, when I got home, and I was like, I'm just going to take some Excedrin for this. And I looked, I'm like, oh no, I only have like 2 Excedrin left. I have migraine medicine. So if I get hit with a bad one, I can just take that. But I normally don't get that low on Excedrin. You've known me long enough to know normally I'm like, oh, I'm getting into this bottle, I better buy another bottle.
Right?
So.
Yes, spare bottle. Must have spare bottle.
So, yeah, I can't believe I've actually let myself get this low on it. It's very strange.
Well, do you know what I'm trying? You've mentioned going to the store. I'm trying there's the Imperfect company.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I've signed up for it. I don't get my first shipment until next Friday.
Right, where they send you like the fruits and vegetables that they have blemishes or they're just a little weird or something like that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which who cares, right? Like.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to give it a try.
Yeah.
But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. That's pretty much all I got. I really haven't done much else. It's been a pretty, like I said, it was a pretty boring week. Been trying to cook at home more, but what sucks is I've been falling back into cooking quick comfort stuff. And that's good and bad, because it's bad because it typically is not like the healthiest choices,
Mm-hmm.
So I need to get myself back into, cooking some better stuff instead of just, tonight we had some leftover mac and cheese in the fridge and I was like, oh, I have these brats,
Ta-da! Eat a meal.
Although, like I did cook like peppers and onions and mushrooms to go with it. And I had like,
that's not,
yeah. And we had a little bit of leftover, cauliflower and broccoli from yesterday. So, we killed that off and I made, so it's not like it was devoid of veggies or anything, but it was still just like, let's have these, brats that are really not at all good for us and mac and cheese.
Exactly.
So,
well, I apologize, folks, if you hear anything else in the background, but I have a house guest today that she is a Shih Tzu Yorkie mix, I'm thinking. But even though we went potty before the show, she decided that she needed to go potty again. So if you hear things, I apologize. That's me going on my balcony with my little house guest.
Yeah, makes sense. Just hold her over the ledge and
exactly.
Let her go. No, of course not. I don't condone either of those things.
No, not at all.
Yeah, definitely don't pull the Michael Jackson holding the baby over the ledge thing.
Yes, no.
No.
So that's been going actually pretty good. This is the first time I've ever had a sitting job inside my apartment. Usually I go to their home. But this time the dog is really little, and I'm like, you know what? It's a friend of the family. I'll make this happen. We can make it happen.
Yeah.
And I have learned that I am not ready to be a pet owner. I do miss being a pet owner, but not missing being a pet owner in an apartment.
Yeah.
So yes, so it was a good experiment. I gained a lot from it. Now I know.
Yeah.
So, and it's been interesting because unfortunately things kind of lined up in a not so well way because my director is in town for work. So I need to be in the office. And so I have the dog here. She's doing okay. She's used to having her people 24/7, but she's making it work while I'm at work. And then my mom's taking her out midday. So I'm like, all right, going well. Then Tuesday evening, I get a call from my dad. His apartment the whole building is being fumigated. So him and his cat have to leave for 4 hours. And my dad has a very, very small circle of people that he's around, me being one of them. So I had to scramble, and we ended up coming up with a plan. Called my manager, who's amazing, and said, obviously family comes first. You need to take care of this. I get it. You can either take half a day vacation, work from home, whatever you need to. And I said, thank you. I'll work from home. So I did. I worked from the apartment yesterday. My dad came over, put the cat in the bedroom, and the cat was cool with it. Dog stayed out here. The dog was cool with it. And my dad ended up taking a nap, which worked out well because I didn't have to watch Fox News. So all in all, it worked out much better than anticipated, which honestly, if we really look at things in life, most of the time they turn out better than anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
So all our worry and anxiety over what could happen that doesn't happen makes us feel kind of silly.
Yeah.
So why did I spend all that much time stressing when in reality...
Do you know the worst part? The worst part is how many times have we gone through that, right? Where you, like you said, you ramp yourself way up. And this is like, even people who don't suffer from mental anxiety, like mental illness level anxiety, like they just have the air quote normal type anxiety. We all ramp ourselves up for stuff. And then we go do it and you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. And then the next time it could be the exact same thing. And we're like, oh God. It's like, why can't we, because in therapy and stuff, you learn or in any sort of psychology, like sports psychology, it's the same thing. Once you see a ball go through a hoop, you visualize it every time that ball going through the hoop, right? So it's like, well, okay, I can do this. So every time it's like, remember you did this, right? It's like, it is so amazing how our brains, like, as soon as we have that level of success, just completely wipes the slate clean. Like, our brains don't seem to want to hang on to that win. And then next time go, oh, I got this. It'll be like, oh no, we got, like right back to it.
What are the odds that's going to happen again?
You got lucky. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, you just got really lucky.
And it's like,
and in reality, it's the exact same odds.
Right.
The odds don't change. It's a 50-50.
Well, most times it's not even that. Most of the times it's probably more like severely more likely it'll go fine than that it won't. It's just, but our brains just, like I said, we just cannot hang on to that win and use it and build on it so many times. Like, even when you try, it's like our brain just wants to go, no, like, it's like you said, it's like it won't go that way this time though,
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Oh, goodness. Yes, what the games we play on ourselves.
Yep.
So it ended up working out just fine. And, my dad is ever so grateful, and I'm absolutely thrilled that I'm able to do that for him. Everybody's relationship is different.
Yeah.
And I would never trade as much as my dad and I can kind of go back and forth on stuff. I've never traded my time with him for anything.
Yeah.
It's like I still always keep grounded in that moment of there will be a time where I can't hear his voice.
Yeah.
And as much as I'm sighing and going, oh God, I gotta, the reality is I wouldn't train you,
exactly.
you know?
Right. Because, like I'm sitting here and from seeing me and others too, of course, but from seeing me just how I would literally give anything to be able to do stuff for my dad again, it would, in a second. And that's why I'm very, very much the type that when I hear somebody really, if they lose sense of that, that I'm like, hey, just to let you know, you might want to, yeah, you say that now, but trust me, from the other side of this, I wish my dad could drive me crazy once in a while again, So it's good to keep that perspective. And also, like you said, it's your parent anyway. I mean, you're still, most of the time, you're still going to do for them because it just, it's just what needs to be done within reason. If there was,
of course,
certain lines crossed or something, that's one thing, but
yeah, it's just how I am. I'm meeting a lot of newer people in my life right now, through dating and stuff. And we're, of course, talking about ourselves and letting people know who we are and stuff. And it's such a big part of who I am. And I'll hear a bunch of different feedback, and some of it's amazingly nice. And I appreciate that. But I do these things because it's who I want to be.
Right.
And that's where it comes down to. It's like, it doesn't come into play anybody else other than me. And it's quite selfish, honestly, because even though it may be a selfless act or a something for someone else, I do it because I want to sleep well at night.
Yeah, right.
I want to be the person I want to be, so I'm not anxious and guilty and, in feeling bad about myself. It's like, no, I kind of need to do these things so that I can at night go, I like who I am. And this is who I'm comfortable being.
Right.
Type of thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I'd be the same way. It's one of those scenarios to where, how like the old saying, like you can't go wrong doing good or something like that. And it's like, it's one of those where it's win-win. Because like you said, it's like you're doing something for somebody else and you get your dopamine boost out of it too. So it allows you to sleep at night, feeling smug in that you're a good person,
Exactly.
Feed your ego.
That's where I'll feed the ego a little bit.
Yeah. Yep.
Positive narcissism, right?
Right.
Yeah, that's what we're going to tell ourselves.
I'll allow it.
Yep. So it's things are good, and I have another pet sitting job that was actually a recommendation. I have two couples now, I guess, fighting over me. There was a under the table deal made that the one client I started with, I sat for their two dogs. And they have an absolute wonderful Labrador that's just super sweet and super chill. And then they have a very young Basset Hound.
Yeah.
And the Basset Hound is the funniest thing ever because he's like a year and a half old. So just out of puppy stage.
Yeah.
But still puppyish at times. But he's a Basset Hound with giant ears, a long body, and a very old man face.
Sure.
So seeing a Basset Hound chase his own tail is got to be if I get this on video again, I am so posting all over the internet.
Sure.
It is the funniest thing I've ever seen. I was like in tears laughing at this dog. But this is also the dog that ate the back off my book. So, no hate that.
Right.
It was my fault for leaving the book down. So I take ownership on that. But I guess they really appreciated my job and the job that I did. So their friends just got a puppy. And so they told her, they're like, well, here's the girl's name. She's really good at sitting on sitting pets.
I like the sitting on pets part.
Yes. She just sits on them and behave. It's amazing.
Right.
Here's our pet sitter. But you are not allowed to book her if we have something else going on.
Oh, wow. All right.
Yes,
That's fair.
We get her first. If she's free, other than our jobs, you can have her.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm like, damn, all right, they're fighting over me.
Yeah.
So I went over and I had a meet and greet, because I always do a half-hour meet and greet before a job set.
Which makes a lot of sense, because you want to see the dog and make sure it's not going to be a nightmare or something, or that there's not just a bad fit, you know?
Exactly. And that's it more than anything, is I really find an animal that doesn't take to me.
Yeah.
I have a very, very good skill set. You know, I'm usually able to adjust to most animals, but there are occasions, as in your cat, that hate my guts at sight. So
Yep.
It can happen.
Yep. By the way, folks, if you ever want to see something break Jen's heart, that breaks her heart. She can deal with people not liking her. It's tough. But she cannot handle an animal that doesn't like her.
I can't.
That's an ego shot she cannot handle. You know, it's funny. I just watched an episode of Golden Girls last night where Rose, a guy she works with, can't stand her. And she talks about how her identity, like on the show, you know, Blanche is the sexy one, Dorothy's the smart one, Sophia's the old one. And she's like, I'm the nice one, you know? And she's like, everybody has to like me. And if they don't like me, you just double down until they do, basically.
Aw, I used to have that motto.
Yeah. So it just reminded me of that as we're talking.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So it is a little Labrador puppy.
Mm.
He's all white. He's adorable. He's like maybe 3 months old-ish. He's just adorable.
Yeah.
And this puppy adores me. So he was just laying down. They're like, he doesn't lay down. He's laying down just gazing at me as I'm standing there talking to them and just lovingly gazing up. They're like, who is this puppy?
Till they leave, and then he's just holy terror, you know?
Right? And then he's like pawing at my leg, so I pick him up, and he's cuddling into my neck and chewing on my hair as I'm, you know, sharing my whole background with these people and stuff. And it was just so, they were just like dumbfounded. They're like, they said you were good, but we didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is not necessarily me. I said, this is not really my skill or anything. This is just, your dog just likes me. And it might be the bacon I stuck behind my ears. Mm-hmm. You never know.
Yeah, that's usually the move. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just, you know, little bacon here and there, little beef jerky in the bra.
Sure.
Works well for dates and for dogs.
Yep.
Just saying.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's nothing sexier than a woman that pulls beef jerky out of her bra on a date, you know? I mean, you just immediately go hard eyes at that point.
See, that's the trick, ladies. You just leave just a tip hanging out of the bra so they can just see the little tip of it.
Yeah.
And they're like, God, is that beef jerky? I bet you that's beef jerky in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The whole time. It's basically like a Beggin' Strips commercial from that point.
Yes.
Right. Bacon, 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 bacon. That's just pretty much it. That's just, yeah.
See, where's Heno for this conversation?
Yeah, I'm sure he'd agree with me.
So anyway, so that looks like it's going to be a pretty good one. And they're going to be, so that'll be an entire week.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, between this one was an entire week, and then that one's an entire week. So I should have a good bit of mad money tucked away for I'm going to be going out to Utah to visit my brother with my aunt and my mom.
Yeah.
So that was the goal, is to get some mad money put away, so I don't feel guilty about spending bill money, obviously.
Yeah. Right.
Got to keep the bill money for the bill takers.
Yep.
And so I'm doing that, and then I'm also giving my plasma, which is working really well. But I guess I need more protein. So I am not a fan of beans, but I'm gonna have to eat nuts and beans.
Yeah,
a lot of them, I guess.
There's other foods.
I for everyone in the office.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think like lentils and stuff have higher protein stuff too. So I mean, there's not just beans. There are other options for you, but yeah, beans are probably the easiest.
I don't like lentils very
Okay.
much.
All right.
I am a fan of hummus. So chickpeas have a lot of protein.
Yep.
So I can start eating more hummus, and I love peanut butter. So
Yeah.
I just need to focus on eating myself some peanut butter.
Right.
So
Yep. Okay. Lots of chicken.
what was that?
I said tons of chicken. Protein shakes.
Exactly. I had like this massive steak last night. My director took us out for a nice dinner, and I love ribeye, and they had a ribeye on their special, and this was this is like steak a la carte type place.
Yeah.
Where everything you have to buy.
Yeah, I was going to say, you order a steak, you get a steak. Yeah.
I think it was like a 14-ounce ribeye.
Yeah.
And I just got asparagus with it, charred asparagus, which is amazing.
Nice.
This steak came, and I'm used to eating like 6 ounces.
Yeah, I was going to say probably an 8-ounce. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
I had a 14-ounce ribeye, and I ate that darn thing.
Well,
every bit of it.
I mean, you were trying to help your plasma situation.
I went and I donated and I gave plasma today.
Yeah.
My protein was just on the edge of acceptable.
Wow.
I know. I'm like, I ate like this giant steak. How much more protein can I shove in my system?
Even more.
Yes, even more. My iron was good.
Well, that's good.
But,
Yeah.
Yeah. So iron was looking good now, but I'm like, yeah, okie dokie.
I just listened to a podcast about plasma donation, how the U.S. is only one of like 2 countries that allows people to be paid for plasma, basically. How most of the world does, but the U.S. supplies like 50% of the world's plasma, which is interesting. But it also, of course, goes into how plasma is looked at in different ways because it can be a predatory practice and all that kind of stuff because, typically plasma centers don't pop up in good neighborhoods. There's a reason for that, So, yeah, it was an interesting listen, though, because it kind of, pointed out things from both sides of the argument there, how it is predatory, but without paying people for it, people won't go as much to donate. So it's significant.
And here's the thing. Plasma is used in medicine.
Yes.
That's the whole purpose of it.
Yep.
So plasma is used for medicine, and it is bought from the plasma centers by corporate
by pharmaceutical companies. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Pharmaceutical companies purchase it from them. So them giving me a little bit of that cut, I think it's kosher.
No, I'm
that's just my
No, I know. Yeah, that's why I said it was an interesting listen because they talked about, because like there's groups that are putting out the warnings like, hey, there's a shortage on plasma and this is a bad thing for a lot of parts of the world because they need those medicines and that, like you said, because they get the plasma from these places, they dump it into a giant vat and then they, use it, like you said, to make a bunch of things. And, so it's a position where, they want, and they had issues for a while because of, people lying because they wanted money. So they'd lie about the health of their own health and, all that. But they found ways to get around that, I guess, by making it like really, really cold and rinsing it with certain chemicals, essentially. They can kill off pretty much everything, including HIV. So,
wow.
Yeah. So basically, whatever is donated pretty much can be used. Unlike blood, where there's a lot of things, if it's in your blood, for blood, they can't use it at all. That's why it sucks. You can go give blood and your blood still may not be accepted because, you may have this or that, or a certain level's not high enough or whatever. But anyway, yeah.
And the reason they don't pay for blood donation is because more often than not, the blood is donated on.
Right.
No one is really paying the Red Cross for their blood.
Yeah.
They
do sell to hospitals.
Yeah. There are going to be some money exchanges, I'm sure. But it's not the same as the big farm companies that are buying the plasma.
Yeah. That's why a doctor friend of mine actually encouraged me if I was going to donate because I'm O positive. He encouraged me to go donate directly to hospitals because my blood can be used for trauma.
Yeah.
In those situations to where, that way they don't have to worry about getting the blood type right. They can just use the universal blood and, the people usually are okay. So, which is actually something I need to do anyway. I haven't given blood in a while. I need to go do it.
Well, it's one of those things, and you can't do both.
No, I know.
You can't do plasma and blood.
Yeah, I know. Well, they're two separate things because, like, when plasma, they pull that out and the blood goes back into your system.
The platelets.
Yeah, so they can't, like you said, you can't do both because, that's no bueno.
Exactly. And the thing with plasma.
Oh, boy. You're freezing up here. There we go. Okay.
Am I there?
Yeah, you're walking around and I think you lost your signal.
Yes. And I don't want somebody to make potty in the house, so we have to go downstairs. So I apologize again for the sound quality here. But plasma donation takes, the actual donation process takes about 45 minutes or so. And it's honestly just as easy, in fact, not even, possibly even easier than blood donation. The only thing that's uncomfortable is in the end when they're putting saline and like things back into your system, your red blood cells and saline back in. It's chilled.
Oh,
it's not cold, but it's cold compared to your normal 98 degrees.
Right.
So, yeah, if you get chilled easily, you will be, like, some people will literally shiver. So most people are bringing blankets.
Oh, wow.
Kind of like when you're doing chemo,
yeah.
people bring blankets.
Yeah, right.
Similar.
Interesting. I didn't know that. That's something that, because I've read about, people's experience with that. That was something that wasn't said in there. That's interesting.
Yeah. You get really chilled.
Yeah.
So it's behooves you to bring warm stuffuses. But yeah, so that's kind of what I've been doing. I've been quite busy, which is good, but I'm definitely feeling like I need to do some quiet time, just relaxing.
Right.
Get myself a good movie or something.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe revisit my Harry Potter collection.
Right.
Well, I guess that's all I have. Now, did you have a topic for us?
Yeah, I did. I saw this was actually from Men's Health. I got in a newsletter or something like that from them. And it was about, was it How to Get Unstuck? And there's a whole big chunk of the article I'm just going to skip over, but it'll be in the show notes if anybody wants to, read that part of it. I just wanted to kind of get to the meat of it more, which is like the first part of it says how to think about feeling stuck. It says, let's run through a few key stuck concepts as this guy did with, I believe it was a psychologist or psychiatrist friend of his. Let me double check on that. Psychologist. And her name's Kelly. It says, who helped me come up with alternate words and phrases, some psychological and some not, that can let us be more specific about our emotions when we're stuck or feeling like we can't find our way out of a detrimental situation. And the first one is, you're not stuck. You're dissatisfied. It says there's agency in that. You don't just happen to be stuck, and you won't just happen to get unstuck. You were involved in the problem, and you'll be involved in the solution. That one's interesting to me, because it's weird, because I think most of the time when we feel that we're stuck, a lot of times we don't feel like we put ourselves there. I really think a lot of times we think that that's just where life has put us or circumstances or what, and we don't really stop and go, wait, what was my hand in this? We
don't feel we have control.
Right. And same with the solution though, right? Is a lot of times we don't feel like, you feel stuck in a job, so you don't feel like there's any choice or not choice, but you don't feel like you can control things moving forward. The next one says, you're not in a rut, you're in a habit loop involving cue, routine, and reward. It says when you're feeling stuck, your brain is trying to help you. It's trying to save you time. It convinces you the Groundhog Day of your existence is a comfortable, safe thing because routine conserves brain power. That's the habit loop. Let's say you've developed a habit of watching hundreds of TikToks for the first 30 minutes of your workday. The app is always there, so you can do this routine every day at the same time. All your bad habits work this way, and they can be disrupted by replacing the cue, which is sitting down at your desk at home, with a different cue, starting your day on your sofa and switching up your routine. Which, I've talked quite a bit about this with a couple of friends of mine that are, one's a doctor and one's I don't remember what she went to school for. It's neuro something. Mm-hmm. It's big brain stuff. And she talks about, or both of them talked about, like writing new scripts for your brain. Mm-hmm. Because when your brain has a script, it wants to just stick to the script and run that script over and over and over. It's very similar to a computer if you know anything about computers. Once you teach a computer something, that's what it does. It just keeps doing that until you tell it to do something different, basically. Mm-hmm. And our brains are the same way. And it's hard. It's very hard to rewire your brain, but it can be done. And it doesn't matter what it is. I've heard so many people that's the way I was brought up. It doesn't matter. You can mm-hmm. change it. You have that power. If you heard people as adults that have some level of a bigotry or something, well, that's just, the way things were, and it's like, you don't have to be that way.
Yeah.
Just because this or this happened in your household doesn't mean it has to happen in your current household. You are in charge. You can make those changes. It's difficult. It's very difficult to change, especially like core beliefs and stuff like that, which we'll talk about on another show at some point, I'm sure. But,
well, it all comes down to choice. In perspective. And so often we go down that rabbit hole where we feel like we have no choice, that this is a situation we're in. We have no choice. We have no options. We're stuck here. And sometimes it takes, and I find a very good technique, is get a pen and paper. It does not work as well if you type it out. Get a pen, get a paper, and write down in shorthand, doesn't need sentences, write down what are your choices.
Yeah.
The most absurd you can come up with to the most logical. Write them all down. And then, as our friend JKL says, that becomes your menu.
Right.
Now you can look at your menu and you have different options and you can pick which one sounds the best to you.
Yeah.
And strictly by seeing all of these different options that you have, you can then assess and can get the perspective that you need. Like if you need to change your job. I really hate my job. I am not happy in my job. Okay, I can get a new job. I can start networking. I can talk to my manager and see if what we can do to change things up. Mm-hmm. And as soon as you start doing that, you become in a problem-solving mode,
right,
versus being stuck in that, oh my God, this sucks, but I can't do anything about it.
Right, which is that loop that it was just talking about, that habit loop. Because your habit loop is you wake up, you dread the day you go to work, you come home, you dread the next day, you go to bed, you get up, like like you said, if you feel you have those options, that helps. It also helps to know that any movement is movement. It doesn't have to be quit your job. Like you said, it could be, like learning a new skill within your company to maybe where you can move to a different position, or, the kind of a thing. Like if you're, someone who does physical work, can you get into the office? Can you get into sales? Can you, are there other places? Or, I remember it's you were in customer service.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, can I get into this? Can I get this? You learn logistics. You moved into logistics eventually, so it's, there's those kind of situations too, to where sometimes you can stay at the same company, but you just shift within the company, and that can make a difference for you,
And maybe, just maybe, by seeing all your options, you can see and get the perspective that the one that you're choosing right now isn't so bad.
Right. Yeah, that's true.
This may be the best choice for you. And then all of a sudden, instead of it being, oh my God, I have to do this, the whole script turns around.
Yeah.
And you're saying, okay, I'm choosing to stay here because this is the best option for me.
Right. Right now. Like maybe in 3 months it isn't, maybe tomorrow it isn't, but for the moment, yeah. So I liked that concept of breaking that loop, though, because it is one of the hardest things for us to do, no matter what it is, whether it's an addiction to sugar, cigarettes, just the negativity. You don't realize that you get addicted to that negativity. And as someone with depression, depression is a warm blanket. I mean, and it shouldn't be, but boy, is it. And you get addicted to the comfort. And it's familiar. And, and that, like the article says, that's what our brain wants. Our brain wants what's familiar because it's lazy. That's the easiest thing.
Yes,
your brain goes, I don't have to work as hard if we just keep doing the same thing. But if you hit a point where it's become detrimental to you, then obviously you need to, make some changes or at least, like you said, come up with a menu and look to see if a change is necessary.
Yes.
The next one on here is you're not overwhelmed. You're experiencing increased optionality, which, it says, how do you commit when you're exposed to so many options? For literally thousands of years, the people around us were our main reference group, the community that showed us how life was supposed to be lived, and it felt as though humans had a much tighter set of options for moving through the world. Now we have access to countless lives online and just as many ways of moving through the world that can contribute to a feeling of paralysis, which we've talked about before on here, paralysis by analysis or just having, like when you're at a restaurant and the menu's so giant that you can't choose what you want because everything sounds amazing, But it also goes on to say the options are almost oppressive. Of course, the big fantasy is that there's a best choice. Remember, your life isn't something that can be endlessly optimized or perfected. No matter how informed you are, there's always going to be a measure of winging it. And as Jen and I were talking about something completely different before we talked about, and I actually mentioned something very similar to her about, because I've read about this before, about when you have the feeling of unlimited options, our brain wants to pick the perfect one. It wants to pick the best. And again, right? Like if you go into a restaurant and you have 30 things on the menu, whatever you order, odds are it's going to be fine, right? Like, I mean, maybe not, you never know, but it's like odds are it's going to be good. You're going to get full, you're going to walk out and you're probably fine, right? They're generally, and yeah, don't get me wrong. There are some times where you go to a restaurant and you search the menu and you see something and you're like that, and you eat it and it hits the spot and you're like, that was it. It's like, yeah, you can hit what your body will perceive as perfection occasionally, but typically by the end of it, you're like, that was really good. I'm full. So my needs are met, like everything I needed have been met here. And it's the same with everything else in life in that you don't have to work the perfect job. You don't have to have the perfect life. And we've talked about that countless times on here. Back when we talked about happy-ish is, seek contentment, not perfection, and just making it a decision is better than endlessly swiping right or left or, endlessly scrolling the menu. It's like, seriously, just pick something. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard when you see so many options, but it's just like, just pick one.
Exactly. It's the analysis paralysis. We all go through it at some point in our lives.
I do it. I've done it for years,
Yes. My brother is famous for it. It took him 1.5 years to pick a mattress.
Yeah.
And because he had to research, and he loves those consumer reports and those sites that give you all the experts' opinions on what's the best of the best of the best. And
the funny part is, right, like using the TV as an example, this is where this doesn't work, right? Like you think it does, because in the end, I'm going to get the perfect TV. But the problem is it doesn't, because nobody else is you. Nobody else lives in your apartment. Nobody else
Correct.
has your exact decorating things. No one else has the exact amount of people you have come. Like, and by that, I mean layer each one of those things. So each one of these things has to be ticked for it to be, air quote, perfect. You cannot hit that number because they mass market TVs. Now, if you could walk into a TV manufacturer and say, here's the specs of my apartment, here's where everyone sits, here's the shows that I watch, here's blah, 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 then yes, they could probably make you a TV that ticks off most of your stuff. But that isn't how it works. They're making a TV that appeals to, that hits the majority of people. So there never can be a perfect TV because there always could be one that's a little crisper, a little bigger, the blacks are just a little blacker, like.
And on top of all of that, they're constantly creating
Yes.
new ones.
Oh, they have them sitting in warehouses waiting to be released. Like what we see in stores, they're already manufacturing the next wave, and then when these get clearance, those will hit the market and it just keeps continuing, Although at some point it does feel like we're probably going to hit a point because our eyes can only process to a certain level. So the next step will have to be, yes. But,
there you go.
But it's like the next step, I think, is we're going to obviously have to have digital eyes that then increase.
Yeah, because the phones, we all have that friend. You know who I'm talking about. We all have that friend that has to have the brand new phone when it hits the market. And they probably haven't even paid off the last brand.
Oh boy, it's breaking up real bad.
Next one, because every new generation,
man, this is
comes out on their phone. We have to have the next best one.
There we go.
Even if, hold on.
Yeah, I would say it got really bad for a minute there.
Can you cut that out then?
Yeah, I can probably cut that out. It's fine though. Like I'm still recording, but
I know I was giving you airspace.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's fine. You can go ahead.
Okay. So, yeah, we all have that friend. No matter if it's an extra camera, if it's an extra gigabyte, it's whatever it may be.
Yeah.
They had 2 phone jacks. Whatever it is, and for those who don't know what a phone jack is, I apologize. I know, I'm old. Anyways, it's always going to be something.
Yep.
And all these experts, that's their opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know opinions are based upon our likes, our dislikes, and our lives.
Yep.
So, not your life.
Yep.
So, I think that's great. And yeah, that's a piece of information I can use. But quite frankly, it's just another data point.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep. And you're right. Like in the end, you spent a year and a half looking for the perfect TV instead of just buying a really nice TV and enjoying that TV for that year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And it's weird though, because those of us that are notorious for that, we don't look at things that way, because to us it's like, yeah, but when I get that cherry on top of the sundae, it's gonna be perfect. Never mind that the ice cream's all melted.
Yes.
Like it's not right until I get that perfect little cherry on top, and it's like, yeah, but it's melting in the meantime, and everything's running all over. But
Yeah, it's tough though. It's tough to know where that line is.
It is, because you do want to be informed, but at some point you really are just running in circles.
Well, I mean, people do it all the time in their lives.
Yep.
They're young. They're like, okay, I'm going to start my job. I'm going to travel when I get older.
Right.
And then, I'm going to travel when I get older.
Yeah.
I'm going to travel when I retire.
Right.
And by the time they retire, God willing, that they're still able to do the traveling that they've been putting off their entire life that they've always wanted to do.
It reminds me of, I'm sure you'll remember this, like there's a term that a lot of Magic players use, and it's basically, it'll be like, you build a win condition into your deck in the game Magic the Gathering, and then there's cards that people be like, oh, I should play this, and you're like, that's a win more card. Like, you already have a deck that should win, you're just trying to pile on, right? Like, you fill a plate at a buffet, and it's full, and you're like, you know what, I bet I can fit even more on here. It's like, dude, you can go back, you can have a second plate. But people will try to pile on, and like the win more concept, I think, is a lot of this too. And that, like you were saying, is, like going back to the TV, instead of just finding a great TV, find one with really good reviews that really seems to match what you want, and just go buy it, or, even if you research it a little bit and then just go buy it. It's like, no, I got to win more. I gotta have every bell and whistle. I gotta have and it's like, do you though? Like, why can't you just, why do you, it's that chasing perfection versus just being content,
You've just described every single person that is pretty much considers themselves a gambling addict.
Yeah.
That's the exact argument. People look at them and say, you just won money. Why can't you be happy? Why can't you just walk away?
Right. Yeah.
And it's that same mindset, that switch gets flipped in your head and you can't win enough.
Right.
Because it's not even about winning anymore.
Right.
It just goes to this whole nother level.
Yeah.
And that is why a brand new gambler, first time in the casino, will win.
Right.
Career gamblers will not.
Right.
Because the newbie comes in and hits a jackpot, and they're so happy. They're like, this is not happening again. I'm taking my money and I'm going home.
Yeah.
The career gambler is like, I've won a couple times now. If I keep letting it roll, I'll win more.
Right.
So you just got to keep letting it roll, because eventually it's going to pay out big.
Right.
I'm going to win more.
Yep. And it's interesting because it really is, like, ultimately, I mean, we know the real reason why most of us do this stuff with electronics anyway. I know electronics, it's about bragging.
Well,
you want to be, like you said, you got to be that first person to get the 10K TV. You got to have the first, VR headset. You got to have all that. And it's because you want to show off to other people, basically, And the funny part is that most people are just like, oh, that's cool. And then they're just like, oh, hey, are these hors d'oeuvres? And you're like, yeah, wait, I'm not done telling you about my TV. And you're like, yeah, it's nice. So what are these cream puffs? Like, what is it?
A gentleman down the hall from me, and he does have a 2-bedroom, so I don't know how big his wall may be, because maybe it's bigger than mine, but he was bringing in a 105-inch TV.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, I have a very nice sized apartment.
Right.
But, I barely have a wall that a 105 TV would fit on, let alone the space to be away from a 105 TV to be able to, like, see it appropriately.
This goes into what I was saying a little bit ago about, like, our eyes can only see to a certain level.
Right.
Even if you have great vision. Like, seriously, if you're going to buy a TV, measure your seating area to the spot you're putting the TV and look it up online. There are people who've done the math and will tell you the optimal size for your distance. Anything over that, our brain doesn't see any better. It's similar to megapixels in cameras. Like, people don't realize that there is a level to where you can go, wow, these pictures look clearer than something else. But once you hit a certain level, you can't see it anymore. Like, you literally cannot see it. It's impossible for our eyes to process it. So over a certain number of
damage your eyes.
Right, over a certain level of megapixels, you would literally have to blow it up on the side of a building to see the difference. Like, that's how, but we're sold on that. You've got, oh man, this camera's got 9 million megapixels. And it's like, yeah, but you can't see, like, it doesn't look that much better than a 5 million megapixel camera,
Well, the best part, so he's bringing this ginormous TV into his apartment. I'm like, man, that's huge. He's like, yeah, this one's going in my living room. My 65-inch is going into my bedroom.
Oh, my goodness.
And I am literally ruining my eyes with my phone, my laptop,
Yeah.
my work. I have 3 screens at work.
I've got a 32-inch TV, I believe, in my bedroom, and I could probably go to about a 37 because it's about the same distance as where you and I used to live. And you remember I looked up the math on that, and I think it said 42 inches was about ideal.
Yeah.
And it was like we had a 37, I think, in the living room there, and it felt plenty big. Like there was never a point to where I was like, we need a much bigger TV than this.
I have a 40, probably a 40 or a 42 at most TV in here, about 8 feet away from it.
Yeah.
And so many people, usually men, that have come over and hung out here always comment about my small TV. They're like, wow, your TV's kind of small. I'm like, it is perfectly fine size.
Yeah.
We're 8 feet away from it. I can see, everyone can see from my little living room.
Yeah. Right.
I don't see where the problem comes in.
Right. Well, like the TV I have in my bedroom is 32 inches. The only thing that I would say would be nice is it would be nice to upgrade the quality of the TV because it's God, how old? 10, 12 years, something like that. It's an old TV. So it would be nice to get a clearer TV. But as far as the size, I don't really need, I could go a little bigger, but I really don't need it. Especially since it's only me watching it, so you don't have to worry about someone sitting different distances. It's one person sitting in basically the same spot watching it.
Exactly.
That's insane. Anyway, so the next one on here says you're not feeling paralyzed. Your brain is trying to protect your sunk costs. What am I giving up is a powerful anxiety. Humans are generally averse to gambling on an unknown future when they've built something. Your anxiety regarding change often comes from the fact that there are many moving pieces, and the longer you move through the world, the more linked everything is. It can feel like a house of cards or a line of dominoes. Because sometimes it actually is. If I give up my job, I can't pay my bills, I'll lose my house, I'll lose my car. Sometimes the chain is definitely connected. But you're also jumping to if you get rid of your job, but you could get another job. You're skipping over a potential situation there. And like you learn in therapy most of the time, it's there's nothing wrong with a little bit of planning, but also, living in the moment and crossing bridges as you get to them is a much healthier mindset for most people. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with planning a little bit, but when you're so far in the future that you can't see the present, then it's a problem. But this does make a lot of sense. Yeah.
Is that dang word balance again?
I know, right? It is really tough with this though, because when you're looking in an area, like jumping, and it's like, what are the risks here? And it is so much easier to look at risk than reward.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is in our brains, like in our problem assessment. Our brains tend to throw negative much quicker. Like we talked about a little bit ago, how your brain, even though you've successfully done something, your brain will immediately sometimes go back to the, hey, there's risk here. And it's like, yes, but it's acceptable risk. You know
what I came to the conclusion of? I was able to, and I've mentioned before, this year has just been an incredibly growth year for me. One thing that I came to terms with is I will get hurt.
Yeah.
I came to terms with it.
Yeah.
I have accepted it.
Mm-hmm.
That hurt is just part of life, and there's nothing I can do other than make what happens before the hurt so amazingly good, or at least have an amazingly good story from it, that when the hurt comes, as it always does, it's worth it. Mm-hmm. It's like, all right, I will take the hit on this one because that was phenomenal.
Yeah.
So that's the goal, is to make what happens before the hurt so good.
Right.
So that's where I'm focusing now, is not living by, I can't do this, it'll hurt.
Yeah.
I can't fall for this person because I'll get hurt.
Well, you think about when you're a little kid, and I don't know, I know this applies to boys. I assume it applies to girls too, but I don't know as well.
Yeah.
But there's so many times as a little kid that you just do stuff. Like we look back at it. Tony and I have done this. We'll reminisce about some of the really dumb stuff we did. And I'm sure you probably did it too. Like where you swing on the swings, you get as high as you can, and then you jump off.
Yes.
That is so dangerous. You could break your neck doing that. You could die doing that. But when you're a little kid, you don't think about it. You just go, this is going to be fun.
Yes.
And you just do it. And it's like, and there's times where like I landed and it got a little hurt, but didn't stop me from doing it again.
Right.
I get right back up and do it again. And it's amazing how I was just talking with somebody else about like critical thinking as kids too, and how when you're a kid, I don't know. Do you remember when we watched that show Brain Games the one time and they showed the bus picture?
Yes.
And they showed a picture of a bus with no doors on it. And it didn't have a front and a back end. That's what it was. And they showed adults and they were like, which way is this going? And most of the adults got it wrong and spent a ton of time trying to figure it out. They showed it to little kids and almost every little kid was like, oh, it's going this way because there's no door on this side. And adults we lose the ability to think that freely because we're taught how to critically think and how to think within a box, basically. And kids they apply imagination to their thinking. Adults lose that. And it's, and I think it's similar in those regards that when you're a kid and something, don't get me wrong, we even as children have anxiety and stuff, but there's so many times you just see kids do something and you're just like, man, I wish I could be that free. And you're like, and somebody, it's just like you almost want to say to the person, you were. Like you probably were at some point. We're all taught to quit being that way because the world's dangerous and this is dangerous and this is dangerous. And it's like, yeah, it is. You're going to fall. You're going to scrape your knee and get hurt. And when you're an adult, nobody kisses your knee and says, hey, it'll be all right, sport, and tussles your hair. But, it's one of those things. It's amazing how we lose that. That bold.
I answer people because people, I will share, especially some of my loved ones. I'll share, hey, I'm going to go do this. And they're like, I just don't want to see you get hurt. And I turn and I look at them. I'm like, oh, I will.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
I will get hurt.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I said, I'm not looking forward to that.
Right. Like, I'm not looking to, be on the, an intro to a Law and Order episode, but.
Exactly. But will I get hurt? Yeah, most likely. I mean, I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
That, but will it be worth it? I hope the heck it would be because that's what I'm aiming for.
Right.
But, and it's having that freedom that I'm recapturing.
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned Tony, and I will never ever forget the story. And I wish I was there. I know you two were, and you guys had the golf club.
Oh yeah.
And you were like hitting golf balls, and Tony went for a big swing, and ended up hitting himself in the head with a golf club, but on the opposite side of his head.
Yeah, I still to this day don't know how he did that. He hit himself with the shaft of the club, and he had like an indent in the side of his head where it hit, and he just yelled out, and I was swinging a club myself, so I wasn't paying attention, but it was easy to figure out what happened because I could see the indentation in where the club hits. But yeah.
Yeah. And then you shook it off and you move forward.
Right. And it didn't stop him from like going out and doing it again. I mean, we were done for the day because he was, hurting, but
head hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. But like you said, you get hurt, it's in the past, pull some Rafiki into it.
Yes. Throw some Rafiki into it.
Yeah.
Folks, we all love, it's a children's movie, The Lion King. And one of my favorite scenes is Rafiki and Simba. Simba was an adult. He still ran away. He was still hiding. Rafiki finds him, and they have this conversation, and Simba says he doesn't want to go back, and people hate him, and all this other stuff. And Rafiki hits him over the head with his stick. And Simba looks at him and goes, ow, that hurt. And Rafiki is like, doesn't matter. It's in the past.
Yep.
And Simba just shakes, he said, but it still hurts. He's like, in the past.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, the past can hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just think it's interesting, like, you know, if you're looking at like the job scenario and stuff, even it is scary to just jump. You know, it's
Yes.
scary that you're afraid you're going to fall on your face and all that kind of stuff. But, you know, it's however many times you want to say it, it's like, you know, failure is where we learn our best lessons. And it's not truly a failure. You know, it's just a step on the road to success, as, you know, people will reframe it. And when you look at it that way, it's less scary. You know, like if I run from point A to point B, there's a chance that I could trip, fall, scrape my face all up. Right? But that doesn't mean I can't hit point B. It just means that I could at some point fall, scrape my face up. But then what do? Do you get up and keep running, or do you just give up or whatever? That's where those things matter. And I think, you know, if you're willing to approach, like you said, with a mentality of things may not go the way I want them to or whatever, but, you know, or I may get hurt. But it's okay, because odds are in most of these scenarios, especially jobs and different ones like that, it's like odds are you'll be okay. You'll figure something out. You know.
Yeah, and I hate to even put this out into the universe, because the universe has a tendency of mocking me, but there has yet to be a hurt that I have not recovered from.
Right.
And every single time I've recovered and been better.
Yeah.
So, you know, it sucks going through it. Not going to lie. Hated going through it. Do not recommend. But on the flip side, it was worth it.
Yeah.
And every single time, even the times that what my worst fear came true.
Yeah.
And it turned out that quote unquote failure was actually a blessing in disguise. You know, you get fired from a job, your world is ended.
Yeah.
Then you go and you find the next job, and it's the best job you've ever had.
Or like, you know, we had a friend years ago that got, you know, what's the term for it, where they call you redundant? Laid off. So he got laid off, and he was, you know, very upset by it and all this, which is understandable, because, you know, we all, that's how most of us would react. But it was like, I remember talking with him, and, you know, he had 2 young sons at the time, and I was like, but think of it this way, you get to spend all that time with your kids now that you couldn't before because you were working all the time, you know? So there's the silver lining in that scenario. And yeah, you know, eventually you'll go back to work and whatever, but in the meantime, just be thankful of the scenario that you get to spend more time with your boys while they're in their formative years, you know? That
and who knows, maybe you're supposed to.
Right, exactly, you know? So
maybe there's somebody, I mean, we're not a religious show, but whatever, karma, Buddha, whatever you decide, right? Maybe somebody is trying to tell you that you need to slow down.
Yeah.
Or someone is trying to tell you that there's something you need to learn here, and you're not picking up on the hints. Yep. So we're going to do something a little more dramatic for you to understand.
Right.
There is a learning here.
Yeah. And I want to go back to something you said a little bit ago about the hurt and overcoming it. Is, you know, again, there's one of those platitudes that's, you know, you've survived all your worst days.
Yes.
You know, and then there's a truth to it. And it's like, I know, you know, years ago, like I would have just rolled my eyes at it, but it's, you know, it's true. You know, if you're still around, you've survived all of your worst days. So, you know, you can overcome. The last part on here, it says how to talk about all this. It says, you're not the only one who wants you to get unstuck, which may be part of the problem. While your feelings of obligation to loved ones can contribute to the stability of a household or a relationship, sometimes the routines we're in exist because we don't want to disappoint people we care about or disrupt their lives. The key is framing your situation and the change you want to make in a clear-cut way that makes taking action feel laudable and positive, not selfish and burdensome to others. Quote, There are going to be some losers in any change you make, and they need a story that they can hold on to too, says Kelly. If I said to my wife, I'm going to walk to Buffalo next year, she'd be like, what are you talking about? But if I said I was going to train for a marathon, which time-wise can be akin to starting a second job, well, everybody gets that. It provides a clear way for people to support you and show up and celebrate it. Mm-hmm. The right language allows people to participate, and those are the people who are going to help you stay unstuck. I know a lot of this doesn't seem thrilling. We aren't talking about bold moves here. The big secret is that while the state you're in may feel extreme, the way forward is almost certainly not. It might require training your vision on a different path. It might require adding a new 5-minute-a-day habit to your life. Whatever the solution is, it's probably sort of mundane, simple, easy, adoptable, that you can change so much by doing so little. It's kind of a superpower, and the first step is not even doing very much. It's replacing certain words with others. It's talking.
That communication piece.
Yeah.
It's so important.
It really is.
I mentioned it before on the show, is when you're ending relationship, friendship, whatever it may be, when the rules change, when you've changed and going through changes.
Yeah.
And you don't tell someone. And they're going to be frustrated and upset. Understandably so. Because they are playing by the same rules you've always played by.
Yeah.
If you change the game, you need to update them on the rules so that they know what's going on and it makes sense in their heads. So, if one day you decide you're going on this, massive health kick and the person that you're living with doesn't get that memo and goes to the grocery store and buys a bunch of junk food, comes home and then you get mad at them for buying all this junk food.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a bit of a communication gap here.
Right. Well, I think a lot of couples went through this scenario, during like the lockdown period of COVID, where a lot of people were working from home or lost their jobs or, or were just kind of laid off for a little while. Was I think a lot of people very much finally had conversations with each other about, hey, I'm miserable. And I mean, not just jobs, but in, relationships as well. I think a lot of people were like, hey, I've really had time about this. And also like with jobs, it's a little easier to see because a lot of people were like, hey, I'm miserable. And their partner would be like, well, we make enough money. You don't have to work if you don't want to, like you can stay home if you'd like, or find a different job that doesn't pay as much and we'll still be okay. And there's a lot of people who really kind of, because the brakes were finally pumped in their life, were able to go, this isn't the path I want. And finally had a minute to really think about it and to address it and look for change going forward. And it's something that we've never seen in our lifetime before. We've never had a moment where we had to pump brakes for months on end. To where you really could take a good hard look at work and what you do, and not just work, but various things in your life, where you had time to really look at it and to talk about it and to think about it. And I think you've seen that with a lot of people. And now you're seeing younger people making moves toward things in careers that they wouldn't, like our generation wouldn't do, to where they would just quit and then go a different path. Our generation is, well, you don't quit until you have another job, or you don't quit until you have something else lined up, especially if you have a family and you have insurance and, all those things. Like it talked earlier about how things can be like a house of cards, or, you can't just pull the rug out from your life. So I love how this ends, though, talking about how, like in therapy and stuff, you learn that the best way to deal with overwhelm from a sense of like looking at a to-do list that has 50 items on it is pick a few of those things and then break them down into the smallest ways you can, or one task. Like for me, right, is a good example. I have a huge fear of driving. My therapist was like, can you just go sit in the car behind the wheel? Like car's off, you're not going anywhere, keys not even in the ignition. Can you sit in the driver's seat and get comfortable there? When you get comfortable there, can you then put the key in the ignition, right? Like you're breaking this down to the most minor steps, almost like you're like you said earlier, like you're basically having a recipe, to where you break things down to every individual step. And like this, going all the way down to first things first, change your wording, because you don't realize, and I'm so much proof of this. We don't realize how much things change when you change your wording. Mm-hmm. Like I made comments in therapy where I'll tell her I can't this, and she'll go, no, your brain doesn't want to this. And it's like, oh, and when you start wording things more that way, you realize the difference in it, to where you're like, oh, I want to do this, but something in my brain is not letting me do this. Now let's find what that is and try to work on that. When you say I can't is an absolute.
Yes.
And it's hard. It feels impossible to overcome. And same with this kind of stuff.
It's
right.
It's I won't.
Yes.
And I can't are very different. I can't means that it is physically impossible, that no matter what, I can never do this. I can't do this. I cannot scream.
Right.
Everyone knows this. Cannot do it. I'm not physically capable of screaming.
Right.
And I squeak.
Yeah.
So, but
you eep.
I won't. And I used to use I can't a lot.
Yeah.
And it comes across, it's a very weak position, because you're saying I can't do something. It's very you don't have a lot of, it's not confident.
Yeah.
It's not, you're just like letting things happen.
Yeah. It's also really easy to hide behind.
Yeah.
You can immediately say I can't, and then you just hide behind it, so, and I'm not saying every time, but it is and can be a crutch.
Yes. Now, if you say, no, I don't want to do that, or no, I won't do that, it doesn't mean that you're being stubborn and unreasonably, unmovable.
Right.
It, could be something like you just said, my brain won't let me do this. I'm sorry.
Right.
It's not something that I'm able to do right now. But then immediately you're confident because you've made that decision. It is your choice, and you are choosing that this is not going to be something you can do right now.
Yeah. Well, and proof of this really is, think about, like, I'm going to go back and read from the 4 points that this makes real quick. Okay. Just the verbiage of it is which one is, and think about this as I'm reading them, not you so much, John, I'm just meaning in general. But the words that how they reframe, and look at how one seems more stone-like and the other seems more pliable, is stuck versus dissatisfied, rut versus habit loop, overwhelmed versus experiencing increased optionality, paralyzed versus protecting your costs. You see what I mean?
Words matter.
Right.
Words matter, folks.
Like, taking the other context out of them, if you just listen to the words, like the stuck versus dissatisfied. Stuck is so, I can't move. Dissatisfied is so much more, like, stuck sounds physical. Dissatisfied sounds like something you can you can mentally change.
Yeah, you can change that.
So
yes.
I think that's very key in this, and that's why I wanted to use this, was because we've talked about reframing a lot of times. And this, I like that this doesn't focus on, okay, you reframe and then you do this, and then, it's like, no, this part of it here is a ton of work. People don't realize how hard this part is. Just reframing things takes practice. It takes a lot of practice, because our brain is wired however it's wired. For you, like, for years you've said I'm stuck, right? Like, to learn to say I'm dissatisfied is a much different thing. Also, you need to learn how to communicate that to others. If I tell you I'm stuck, you pretty much, you may ask how, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But when I say I'm dissatisfied, you say, well, what with? Because dissatisfied also sounds like something you can really help me with.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I called you and said, hey, I'm stuck, it sounds like I'm in a much harder position to change than if I say, man, I'm really dissatisfied right now. And you're like, really, about what? And then we talk, and it feels so like by the end of the talk, we might be able to work through it. I've said the words I'm stuck to my therapist, to other people, and when we have a talk, by the end, I don't feel like I've moved at all or very little, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's why this stuff is so important, because it helps you get in a mindset. It can help others get in a mindset, and you might actually be able to get some progress.
Yeah. I remember it had been at least 6 months, if not before that, before my split with my husband.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking with my therapist, and I was not happy.
Yeah.
I knew I was not happy, and I didn't know what to do about it. And that's why I told him, like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And then I stopped and I looked at her and I said, no, I don't want to do what I need to do.
Yeah.
And she kind of just smiled at me. Like, I'm not ready to do what I need to do.
Right. That's the wording. That, like, it's funny because, you know, you think about other things in life where somebody will hear the cash register sound.
Mm-hmm.
And right there, that's the cash register sound. And I don't mean they're going to make money off of you, but that's the money sound, you know?
Yeah.
That's the, she's got it. Like,
yeah, the ding, 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 ding.
that's, we're there. Yeah. Now we can do some real work.
Yeah.
Yep.
And really, you know, I'm sad to say that I was not able to do what I needed to do. And I hid behind situations that ended up coming to head. And like most relationships break up, there's a catalyst. And instead of taking ownership and making a decision, I waited until the catalyst came along to force it.
Right. Which is something a lot of people do.
Right. And I'm not saying that I don't beat myself up over it or anything like that. It's just advice that I give to others now that are going through similar situations.
Sure.
I always tell them, I'm like, do not wait for the catalyst. It will happen.
Be the catalyst. Yeah.
Yes, be the catalyst. It will happen.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not, you're going to come to that moment, that point. And it's going to be much harder and so much emotion. It's just going to be, it's crazy. It's like a bomb going off.
Right.
If you can get ahead of it and address it before and defuse that bomb, regardless of what the outcome may be, if you can communicate well enough to defuse the bomb before it goes off, all parties will be better.
Right.
It's not going to take any of the pain away or anything like that, but it'll just be a better, more civilized, and all around easier, in a sense, way of doing things.
Yeah. It really is. Because by putting things off a lot of times too, it's like you're miserable that whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, or you're just not happy or content or whatever word you want to use at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it all fits here. And it's like, if you can get to where you can just do it, and it's hard. We all know it, you know, no matter what choice it is, whether it's a job or a relationship or whatever it is, it is really hard to take that step, you know, and a lot of it really has to do with old thinking in that, like, you know, like if you're ending a relationship, so many people are like, you know, oh, you're throwing away all those years. And it's like, no, I'm not. No,
I still have all those years.
Yeah. Like there's just no future. There was a great past, but there's no future. And people can't seem to accept that, you know, and just because you've been together, I mean, you and I, we were together for a long time. And just because we aren't together doesn't mean that what, you know, when we were wasn't good or fun or any of that. There's some great memories we have,
Oh
It's
my
like,
gosh, that's why we're such good friends. to
right,
this day.
it's like I never have looked at that as though we threw away anything, and there are people who do though,
Yeah.
and that makes that decision harder because
Mhm.
people feel that way because that's what we're taught, is that when you're, if you end something like, oh, you're throwing all that away, it's like, you're not. Like what I'm doing is I'm throwing away my misery, like I'm trying to go find happiness,
Well, and there is a bit of mourning the
Sure.
shows for the future.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That I get.
Yeah.
But to
That's for
not
sure.
but to not make a move simply because you've been together, it's tradition is what it is, right? Like when so
Yeah.
many say people with whatever it is in life and they're, well, that's tradition. It's like, yeah, but it's making somebody unhappy or hurting someone. It needs to go. Like time to move on. And I don't mean that in any cold way or crass way. It's just the truth, So
We all change. Life changes.
yeah, and that's okay. Not everyone's meant to be in your life forever, or not in the same context even, There's so many
Right.
people who have gotten divorced and been great friends and great co-parents, and there's others who've been miserable or, with each other or toward their children or whatever, but it's still, it's not a reason to stay together. Like it's
No.
just, and same with your job. I hit a point with the last job I had, which was, at a video store that, the catalyst ended up like what you were saying, Jen. I quit because of a catalyst, but I should have quit long before that.
Yes.
The catalyst was that Tony and I were going to open a comic book store. That gave me my out. But I should have quit when they disrespected me the way that they did long before I did. I probably should have quit 6 months or a year sooner. And when I look back at it, I really go, yeah, I was kind of half-assing a lot of that last year. Because, because I had been disrespected. I mean, the moment when the DM say, we're going to see a new Brian now. And I was like, you sure are. And from that point on, they got half-assed work out of me because I should have quit right then. But like you said, I was not ready to do, take the step.
What you needed to do. Yep.
Yep. So, like I said, so there's so many things in our life we can apply that to. But anyway, I know we've talked a lot about this tonight, but it's funny because part of the reason I picked it was like, oh, this is a nice short subject. And here we are at an hour and a half. So.
Well, folks, you haven't gotten a lot of articles lately, so we just made up for it.
Yeah.
You got a really nice, good, long, juicy one.
Yeah.
So, with that, I can honestly say we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
And we covered a lot of, I find, interesting points, and hopefully you do as well. So, if you have a comment, a critique, constructive, please, or just want to talk to us and reach out, please do. You know where you can find us. You can find us at the crazylifepodcast.weebly.com is our website. The crazylifepodcast@outlook.com is our email address. If you want to get directly in touch with me, you can either reach me through Facebook. Brian will give you that information shortly, or just shoot an email and attention Jen. I'd be happy to get it, read it, and let you know what my thoughts too. Brian, how can they reach you, and how can they reach Henno?
Henno can be reached on Twitter at Ida Henno or on Facebook at Henno Heiter. I can't remember. No, he has a different Instagram handle. But anyway, reach out to him on those platforms, and he'll talk to you there. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Stunami. You can find my other podcast at salty_language on Twitter or at saltylanguage.com. That show is not safe for work. It's just me and my best friend talking about just, let's see, what did we talk about this week? Cocaine Bear, The Last of Us, cars potentially repossessing themselves, self-driving cars, a bunch of Magic the Gathering cards were found in a city dump, a huge laptop, stuff like that. So if any of that's interesting to you, please give us a listen. Like I said, not safe for work, so be careful, whose ears are open around when you're listening. You can find this show on Twitter at the Crazy Life Podcast, where I post when new episodes go up. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/Crazy Life Podcast. We're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. So please go check out the other shows there. And yeah, I think that's all the links. So please please reach out if you need help. I'll tell you, one of the toughest things about social media is you see how many people are affected by stuff like suicide.
Yeah.
In the last week, probably 4 people that I've had interactions with, or I would call, fringe friends, whatever, on social media, have lost someone in their life to suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so heartbreaking to watch the survivors, as well. And I mean, I obviously, I feel awful that anyone feels that that's the path they need to take. But it's so hard for the survivors, especially if they don't have a reason, or if, one I talked to a bit last night online, she felt that maybe she wasn't as good of a friend as she, could have been to the person. So please reach out if you're feeling any sorts of thoughts of harming yourself or others. Also, please don't be subtle. I just don't know a better way to word it. Don't be subtle.
Mm-hmm.
Tell your friends, hey, I'm thinking of harming myself. And I need help. It's really hard to say, I'm sure, but sometimes people don't get the subtleties of, hey, do you want to come hang out?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in that kind of thought process, be blunt and tell people how you feel. Or please reach out to, there's all sorts of things in our show notes. I've got a couple different, the suicide prevention line, which is 988 in the U.S. There's a crisis text line. There's all sorts of organizations and groups out there where somebody can talk to you if you're in a way of crisis, or, go to a hospital and tell them you're having a mental health crisis. Just please reach out, and please reach out to your friends and just check in on them, just see how they're doing. We talk so much on this show about communication, and it's so important. And this needs to stop being such a dang taboo and a stigma that people won't listen and people won't talk about suicide. We're losing way too many people to this. So please reach out, and either side of things, And then, of course, please be kind. Just, please be kind to one another. It's amazing how I'm trying really hard when I'm out to kind of come out of my shell a little bit, to talk more to just strangers.
Yeah.
And, like I was in the vegetable store the other day, and there was a woman, I heard her say to someone else that it was her first time in the store, and she just was like a deer in headlights, and she's looking around, and I was like, can I help you find stuff, or something? I said, is there, what are you looking for? And she named a couple things, and I was like, oh, here you go. I was like, it's right over here, and this is over there. And I kind of told her, this is this area, this is in this area, and it was just like, it took me like 2 minutes to do that, and then I noticed that look was gone in her eyes. She seemed to have direction again, and it was like, it took me 2 minutes to do that for somebody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it wasn't even, or like the girl at the checkout, I noticed that, like, as she checked, when she handed me my receipt, and she's, going through the motions of, here's your receipt, have a nice day, which she does to everybody. But, she smiled. I smiled back, which is not something I do naturally. Like, part of this is I'm doing some of this because to me it's kind of unmasking.
Yes.
So I'm trying to do things that put me a little out of things I would normally do. I mean, I've always been the thank you, you too, when they say have a nice day. I always, like, reciprocate. Or if they don't say it many times, I am the type to say have a nice day to people. But it's still just those kind of things. Just they take very little time. And don't get me wrong, these were not easy things for me to do, you know, but
They were simple, but they're not easy.
exactly. So, you know, just maybe push yourself a little bit, push yourself toward kindness, like show kindness, show empathy, show caring, because I think, like, you know, social media and just the way things are right now are making us cold.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucks, you know, and it's terrible for all of us. So, you know, try to just, you know, be warm, be a light, be kind. All right, I'll shut up.
Yeah, actually, so today on my way to give plasma, the main street that I was going on was closed, and so I had to go onto the side streets, and I was like on empty, but I wanted to get where I was going. Then I was going to get gas.
Yeah.
So I get stuck in this traffic jam. No one's moving. My gas tank is just like
Of course.
breathing. It's like gas, you know, it's like, oh my God, I need help.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I just want to get where I'm going, and everyone's in my way, and I'm just irritated.
Sure. Yeah.
So I go and give my plasma, and traffic's still bad when I leave, and I'm like, I just want to get home. I didn't
Sure.
get home. So I give my gas, and I'm heading home, and I'm mood, right?
Right.
And I pull up at a red light, and I was looking, and there's a sign, you know, about a fish fry, unlimited fish fry at church. I'm like, yeah, whatever. And I glance over, and there was a black and white cab next to me. And I glance over, and the driver catches my eye, smiles at me, and waves.
Mm.
He's just smiling and waving at me.
Right.
And so I smile back, I laugh, and I wave back at him.
Yeah.
Light changes. We can move again. And I'm like, son of a gun, if I don't feel better.
Right. It's
like that guy got me.
It is so amazing. Well, you know, like Henno and I talk about this quite a bit. Like, since talking with him especially, I've been such a huge proponent now of you're right where you're supposed to be. Right?
Yes.
And that's exactly what that was. He was right where he was supposed to be. You were right where you were supposed to be, because he wanted to share that smile, and you needed that.
Yes,
you know?
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
and it's just a nice little moment that, like you said, it took you from being, you know, into whatever, you know, even if it doesn't make you like smiley and giggly, even if it takes you to like calm again, you know.
It did. And it was all those things. I was laughing at myself. I'm like, this guy just smiles and waves at me, and all of a sudden it just changes my perspective. I'm like, You're just being a goof. You know, it's like, really? You got stuck behind some traffic. Oh, wow.
Exactly. You know? Yeah, I was going to say, you realize how ridiculous you were really being in that moment. Yeah.
Exactly. This is not a day ender, worst life ever moment. This is a little traffic.
Whoa.
And it's not like LA traffic. It's a little local traffic.
Right.
So,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, this isn't like a 4-hour, sitting.
This was like maybe a 10-minute delay in my entire day. It's like, really? So, anyway, so I just that brought that story to mind. And one more thing I wanted to mention, because you were talking about asking for help. There's nothing wrong with saying, I shouldn't be alone right now either.
Yeah. And, I was telling my mom yesterday about, like, when you talk about asking for help from somebody, and I was, or about, what was she talking about? Oh, she was talking about using, like, a shower chair, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm so tired of how, like, or, people in their 40s who refuse to get reading glasses and just the vanity of it, right? And I'm like, this is so dumb. You wouldn't try to drive a nail into a board with your hand. Mm-hmm. You'd go, oh, I need a hammer, and you get the right tool for the job. Just do that with life, please.
Exactly.
Get a tool to help you, which is kind of a funny way of saying that, but...
Call your friend. Get a tool to help you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But yeah, there is nothing wrong with online. Call a friend, whatever. Just say, you know what, I really shouldn't be alone right now. Can you stay online and talk to me, or can you come over?
I'll tell you, I've seen so many times online. It can be really, really good for that. I've seen so many people saying, I'm in a bad way. Can anyone talk? And I've seen countless people, hey, what do you need? My DMs are open, blah, blah, blah,
Mhm.
It's the first thing I did last night when I saw the one person said that their friend had killed themselves was I told them, my DMs are open if you need to vent or talk, because
Yeah.
I'd rather do that and know, it's like what you were talking about earlier, right? Like I can rest my head knowing I did what I could.
Yep.
And I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I just ignored it and moved on.
Yep. I can be the person I want to be.
Yes.
Yep. So, anyway, we've talked your ears off tonight, folks. Sorry, not sorry.
Right.
It's stuff that we needed to say and we needed to hear, and I hope you needed to hear it as well. So with that, go out there and have the absolute best couple weeks coming. Maybe we'll see you next week. Maybe it'll be 2 weeks. We'll keep you guessing. But go out there and have the best life you possibly can. Enjoy. Be nice. And never forget, wiggle those toes.